Have you ever felt trapped by your emotions, as if someone else has taken control of your inner peace? You're not alone. The burden of emotional attachment can make us feel as if we're powerless, held captive by desires, expectations, or even memories. But what if I told you that freedom is closer than you think? The Stoic philosophers, men like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, spent their lives mastering the art of letting go, understanding that true power lies in what we can control, not in the hands of others. Through their wisdom, we can learn the liberating skill of detachment, a path not to indifference, but to inner strength. Imagine a life where your peace isn't tied to someone else's choices or your happiness isn't tethered to external validation. Picture the calm, steady resilience that comes from seeing the world and all the people in it without the weight of neediness or fear of loss. This might sound idealistic, but it's achievable. The Stoics didn't seek to suppress feelings. They sought to understand them, to assign them the right weight. They found ways to break free from attachments that only served to cloud their clarity and undermine their focus on what truly mattered. In this journey, we'll walk through 5 profound Stoic principles, each offering a key to freeing ourselves from attachments. Each rule is a step on a path to reclaiming control of our emotional landscape, leading us to a place of peace that nothing outside ourselves can shake. So, if you're ready to explore the wisdom of Stoicism, ready to break free from emotional chains and live with newfound clarity, let's dive in. By the end, you'll not only understand how to let go, but you'll find a deeper connection with your true self, one unshaken by the tides of others' actions. And as you'll soon discover, the final rule brings everything together, transforming how you view relationships and attachments forever. Let's begin with Rule 1. Rule 1. Understanding attachment. The role of the ego. Why do we attach ourselves to people, outcomes, or even ideals that do not serve our peace? It may seem natural to become emotionally invested in others, but often these attachments are born from something deeper: the ego's insatiable desire for validation and security. Stoicism teaches us to look beyond surface emotions and examine the root cause of our attachments, which is often the ego's subtle influence. The ego is cunning. It makes us believe that we need others' approval, that we need someone to make us feel worthy, or that our happiness hinges on specific outcomes. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, who are you without these attachments? What remains when the need for validation fades away? The Stoic answer is simple: your core, your essence. It's the part of you that is unshaken by external events and sees life clearly, without distortions from desire or fear. Imagine detaching from the ego's whispers, those voices that tell you that you need someone's attention or approval to be whole. Consider a newborn child, full of pure joy and untouched by the ego's demands. At our essence, we are complete. But as we grow, the ego starts building layers of need, attachment, and insecurity, pulling us away from our true self. Stoicism invites us to strip away these layers, to see attachment for what it really is: a product of ego, not love. Now think about someone you feel deeply attached to. What does that attachment bring you? Is it rooted in love, or is it intertwined with a desire for validation, fear of loneliness, or longing for acceptance? The Stoics would say that love in its purest form doesn't possess, it doesn't cling, and it doesn't seek validation. True love flows freely and is unburdened by the ego's demands. Attachment, on the other hand, is the ego's way of trying to hold on to things that it believes will make us whole. This detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's seeing ourselves and others through a compassionate yet realistic lens. We can understand others' value without needing them to complete us. This kind of perspective allows us to give others space to be who they are, without the weight of our expectations pressing down on them. It is liberating, both for ourselves and for those we care about. But how do we begin to detach from the ego's grip? Start by observing your thoughts. When you feel a pang of attachment or insecurity, question its source. Is it love, or is it the ego's desire to control, to cling, to secure its own importance? When we recognize these patterns, we can start to let them go bit by bit. This detachment brings us closer to a state of true love, one that is generous and liberated, unshaken by external circumstances. Each day, practice noticing the difference between love and attachment. Where attachment binds, love frees. Remember, emotional detachment doesn't mean caring less. It means caring wisely. It means recognizing that our true worth doesn't depend on anyone else's presence or opinion. The ego seeks approval, but Stoicism reminds us that our worth is already complete, undiminished by anything outside of us. This process of detaching from the ego isn't something that happens overnight. It's a deliberate practice, a choice to prioritize inner peace over the fleeting satisfaction of external validation. When you see yourself without the lens of the ego, you'll find that you're enough as you are, and this realization is profoundly freeing. With this understanding of attachment and the ego, we lay the foundation for true detachment. In our next step, we'll address another key illusion the ego creates, a false sense of separation and superiority that makes us feel we're lacking something. Let's move on to Rule 2. Rule 2. The illusion of the ego and self-worth. The ego often clouds our view, making us feel as if we are somehow incomplete or less valuable without the validation or approval of others. Stoicism teaches that this illusion, this need to feel special through external acknowledgement, is a distortion that leads us into attachment. But ask yourself, why do we seek so desperately to be seen, to be affirmed by someone else? And what power are we surrendering in the process? The ego builds a false narrative that another person's validation can complete us. Yet when we pause and look deeply, we see that self-worth is not something others grant us. It is a birthright, something that comes from within. This illusion of needing validation can cause us to idolize others, placing them on a pedestal, as if they hold something unattainable. We begin to think, if only I had what they offer, I would be whole. But Stoicism advises us to challenge this thought and instead view ourselves and others as equals, each complete in our own way. The Stoics remind us that, while we may each have our unique paths, none is superior or inferior. We are all equally vulnerable, equally capable of growth, equally human. And when we internalize this truth, we begin to see ourselves without the lens of lack. We can then appreciate others for who they are, without feeling the need to make them a measure of our self-worth. The ego feeds on this need for comparison, for distinction, but our true essence is independent of these illusions. In practical terms, how do we break free from this illusion of the ego? Start by nurturing a balanced self-image. Remind yourself of your own strengths and accomplishments without diminishing the worth of others. Stoicism suggests regular reflection, asking questions like, what do I truly need from this person's validation? Can I recognize my own value, independent of external praise? When we look closely, we see that our desire for validation is often the ego's need for separation, to feel special or better than others. Stoic practice encourages us to view others and ourselves through the same compassionate lens, recognizing our shared humanity. This mindset shift releases us from ego-driven attachment, allowing us to connect with others freely, without the binding force of neediness. It is a powerful form of detachment, not one that distances us, but one that brings us closer to our true selves, free from the burdens of comparison and insecurity. By releasing this illusion of the ego, we free ourselves to live in alignment with our core values, not according to someone else's approval. We become resilient in self-acceptance, a key aspect of emotional detachment. As we move forward, we will explore the practical steps that bring this mindset into action. Detachment is not just about thought, it's about how we live each day. Let's continue with Rule 3. Rule 3. The power of detachment. Regaining control. When we talk about detachment, many think it means caring less or becoming indifferent. But in Stoicism, detachment means something different. It is the art of assigning the right weight to things outside our control, of seeing clearly and acting accordingly. To regain control of our emotions, we must loosen our grip on what we cannot control. Ask yourself, what are the strings you hold on to too tightly? And is your peace worth the constant strain of attachment? Imagine your emotions are like a kite. Each attachment, a person, a desire, a memory, is a string that tugs you in various directions, dictated by external forces. Some people might feel like they're holding 1,000 strings, with every gust of wind pulling them in a different way. Stoicism teaches that while we can't control the wind, we can choose which strings to hold. When we hold too tightly to something beyond our control, we give others the remote to our happiness. By learning to let go, we gain resilience, clarity, and a steady inner peace. So, what does it mean to detach in this way? Stoicism encourages us to start by identifying what or who we're overly attached to. Take a moment to ask yourself, what drives this attachment? Is it a fear of loneliness, a need for validation, or a sense of obligation? By understanding the root of our attachment, we can begin to untangle its grip on us. This awareness alone brings a powerful shift, for we can see our attachment not as something we need, but as something we can control. Detachment also involves the practice of releasing expectations. When we expect someone to behave a certain way, to fulfill a certain role, we place ourselves at the mercy of factors we cannot control. Instead, Stoicism invites us to engage in activities that ground us in purpose, that give us a sense of satisfaction independent of others. By redirecting our focus from attachment to action, from expectation to purpose, we find a renewed sense of freedom. In your daily life, try to shift from focusing on others' responses to focusing on your actions. Ask yourself, am I acting from a place of control, or am I reacting to the strings others hold over me? Begin to release those strings one by one. This doesn't mean you'll be unaffected by others, but it allows you to stand firmly in your own sense of peace and resilience. By freeing yourself from unnecessary emotional burdens, you make room for more meaningful connections, for relationships based on mutual respect and understanding rather than need. Detachment, therefore, is a form of empowerment. It does not numb you, it strengthens you. It allows you to love and connect without being swept away by tides of need or insecurity. And as we embrace this power of detachment, we prepare ourselves for a life rooted in clarity and self-reliance. In our next rule, we'll take this concept further, exploring practical ways to implement detachment in our daily lives. Let's proceed to Rule 4. Rule 4. Practicing detachment. Release and refocus. Practicing detachment isn't something that happens all at once. It's a gradual process that requires intention and self-reflection. Stoicism teaches us that to be free, we must learn to release the weight of past attachments and refocus on what truly serves our peace. But how do we let go of the people or memories we've held onto so tightly? And how can we move forward without the fear of missing out on something better? Imagine yourself holding onto a rope so tightly that your hands start to hurt. Yet, despite the pain, you hesitate to let go because the rope feels familiar. It feels safe. What if, by releasing it, you could stretch out your hands, reach for new opportunities, and create space for more meaningful experiences? Stoicism tells us that sometimes the act of letting go isn't about loss. It's about gaining freedom. Consider how many people cling to past relationships or experiences simply because they feel comfortable, even if those attachments no longer serve them. Holding on to these memories or connections can become a mental burden, like carrying heavy luggage on a long journey. Stoicism advises us to put down this baggage, to see that the fear of letting go is often rooted in illusion, the belief that we're giving up something essential. But what if the opposite is true? What if, by letting go, we're freeing ourselves to experience life more fully? One of the biggest barriers to detachment is the fear of missing out, or FOMO. The world of social media has amplified this fear, making us feel as though we're somehow missing out on the ideal lives of others. We scroll through carefully curated snapshots of other people's lives, feeling as though we're falling behind. Stoicism encourages us to turn away from this illusion. Real life isn't a highlight reel, it's a continuous journey with its own ups and downs. By stepping away from the endless comparison, we can start living our own lives with focus and intention. In practical terms, begin by limiting your exposure to triggers that fuel FOMO. When you feel the urge to compare, ask yourself, am I seeing the whole picture or just a curated moment? Then, direct your energy toward things that bring meaning to your own life. The Stoic approach to detachment involves a shift from observing others to engaging in our own pursuits. Stoicism teaches that real fulfillment comes not from external achievements, but from aligning our actions with our values. Remember, attachment to an idealized version of happiness can make letting go feel impossible. When we constantly look outward, we miss the value of what's within us. Stoicism guides us back to ourselves, urging us to let go of perfection and focus instead on progress. When we release the need for everything to fit a certain image, we open ourselves to life as it is, imperfect, unpredictable, and uniquely fulfilling. Detachment doesn't mean isolation or apathy. It means creating room for growth, for experiences that resonate with who we are today. As we let go of past attachments, we gain the mental clarity to focus on what truly matters. This focus is the essence of Stoic practice, and it prepares us for our final rule, which emphasizes the ultimate source of happiness, ourselves. Let's continue to Rule 5. Rule 5. Finding inner happiness, embracing self-companionship. Where does true happiness come from? This is a question the Stoics pondered deeply, and their answer remains as powerful today as it was centuries ago. Happiness does not come from others, it comes from within. Stoicism teaches us that while relationships and connections can add joy to our lives, our core sense of fulfillment must be rooted in self-companionship. Think about the people or circumstances you've felt attached to in the past. Did these attachments bring lasting peace, or were they fleeting sources of happiness? Often, we mistakenly believe that our value increases with someone's approval, that our worth is defined by how much others want or need us. But Stoicism invites us to see things differently. Imagine if your peace of mind and happiness depended solely on your inner character, on the way you treat yourself and others, on the values you hold dear. Imagine a life where your emotional well-being is anchored within, unaffected by the opinions or presence of others. The Stoics believed that our most reliable source of happiness is self-reliance. This doesn't mean isolation, rather, it's about knowing that our worth doesn't fluctuate based on others' actions. Picture a bird that believes it needs permission to fly, to spread its wings and explore the skies. Now imagine realizing that the sky has always been open, waiting for you to fly on your own terms. This sense of freedom, of knowing that we are enough as we are, is what Stoicism calls us to embrace. To cultivate this inner happiness, Stoicism encourages us to focus on our own growth. Instead of seeking approval from others, look inward and ask, what qualities do I value? How can I live in alignment with those values? This shift allows us to create a sense of worth, independent of external validation. Each time we align our actions with our principles, we nurture a kind of happiness that isn't swayed by changing circumstances or fleeting relationships. In this state of self-companionship, we begin to see relationships differently. They become opportunities for shared joy rather than sources of dependency. The act of detachment, then, is not about distancing ourselves from others, but about drawing closer to our true selves. When we are centered within, we become free to love without clinging, to connect without losing ourselves, to give without expecting something in return. This kind of love, rooted in strength, not need, is both liberating and fulfilling. Imagine your life as a garden. You don't cling to a single flower, pleading for it to grow. Instead, you tend to the soil, water the plants, and trust in the natural process. Stoicism suggests that by cultivating our inner garden, we create a source of happiness that is resilient and self-sustaining. When we tend to ourselves in this way, we bloom regardless of who chooses to walk through our lives or appreciate our growth. Detachment, then, is not the end of connection, but the beginning of a new kind of freedom. It allows us to experience life without the weight of unnecessary expectations, to engage with others from a place of fullness rather than need. This journey toward inner happiness, toward self-companionship, is at the heart of Stoic practice. And now, as we've explored each rule, consider the journey you're on. Detachment is not a destination, it's a way of living. By embracing these 5 Stoic principles, you are not only letting go of what no longer serves you, but also drawing closer to a life that is clear, grounded, and deeply fulfilling. In learning to detach, we haven't lost anything essential. Instead, we've gained the strength to live freely and purposefully. We've examined how understanding the ego, releasing false illusions, reclaiming control, practicing detachment, and finding inner happiness can bring us closer to the peace we seek. Stoicism offers us a path not only to let go, but to embrace a life where we find value within ourselves. As you reflect on these 5 Stoic rules, remember that this journey is continuous. Each day brings opportunities to practice detachment, to refine our understanding, and to live with resilience. Take a moment to ask yourself, what attachments can I release today? How can I align my actions with my inner peace? This journey is your own, and it is one worth nurturing. If this exploration of Stoic detachment resonated with you, consider sharing your thoughts in the comments. Let's build a community of shared wisdom and growth. If you found value in these insights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who could benefit from the wisdom of Stoicism. Thank you for being here, for seeking clarity, and for embarking on this journey toward a life of freedom and inner peace. May the principles of Stoicism guide you well on the path ahead.